Oh, we're doing this live. Welcome to Sorare Synopsis, Scouting Synopsis. With me, as always, Chris, the MLS card guy. And today we have St. Louis City. If your team plays them, they will gift you a goal because those are the rules. I don't make them up, and it's the capital of soccer. So they say. I saw it on a scarf. But we have Andy Black. Could only afford one. It just doesn't hit the same, but whatever. Andy Black, welcome to the show.
I will say, we did a non-live version of this and a live version. The non-live version, you absolutely crushed it. Knocked it out of the park.
Oh my God. Talk about amateur hour getting like so data and After Dark Bros. Like, yo, I literally clicked the button to go live. I was like, oh, it's time to go live. We're going to do it. Jammed out to the intro, rocked out the banging intro, right? He was surprised. It was genuine, like, just surprise. And yeah, I messed it up. So what's up? Sorry we're late. Jay Blaze in early. Let's go back to back. We love it. Welcome to the show to talk some St. Louis. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely outstanding. How are you guys doing?
Oh, dude, this is our second recording tonight. We're gonna kill it. We're just busting out the content. We're in the States, in the MLS. We are here, but we had to bring on the St. Louis expert because look, you're the new kids on the block. No one really knows much about you. All we know is you came into the league, you finished first in the West, inaugural historic season. Yeah. But there's some non-believers. Some people don't think that you guys deserve to be number one. So tell me about it. Tell me your experience in inaugural season, and tell me about the St. Louis team.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't prepare for any of that. So no, I mean they had a great first season. Like honestly, they ran as good as you can run. We had 3 gifted goals in the first 4 or 5 games.
It was like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
it was more than that.
Sure, the Charlotte own goal, the back passes. We don't have to get into all the details, Chris, Jorge. But yeah, we were gifted some goals. But in the end, we played really well at home, and I think that will be the staple going forward. Like when you look at St. Louis from like a Sorare perspective, you're going to want to play your guys at home, and you're going to want to fade those guys on the road. It's kind of just like at least my take as a guy that owns a lot of their cards. At home, I'm going to have confidence. On the road, I'm not.
It's so funny because that's the exact opposite for Orlando, where it's like, we're playing at home, ooh, but on the road, baby. Like, it's good. We're solid.
Yeah, Orlando's the weird one. Everybody else is pretty normal. Like the home wins is definitely a thing. But yeah, 11 wins at home last year, which I believe was second, third, fourth in the MLS, which is pretty good. First run out there, I mean, guys really brought a whole team in right at the beginning, which I was kind of surprised with, and then didn't make a ton of moves over the summer, just kind of kept it kind of rolling. Do you think that was the right
move? Was bringing in Marcanic, I think was.
Yeah. Do you think that was the right move to kind of get everything ahead of the season and then see how it goes?
I mean, that's kind of how they that's the vibe they're putting out there, is why it was so successful, is they brought all these guys in super early. I mean, like I think Klaus and Lowen and Berkey all came in like it was like 6 months before the season even started, and they got their family life situated and got everything kind of in order. So yeah, I mean, like that's how they're going to sell it, and that's why they're going to say that it was so successful to get going. Like for future expansion teams, I don't know if they're going to have that luxury to be able to bring a player in and be like, hey, you're not going to play for 6 to 9 months, but get everything in order, get your life in order, your passports and green cards and whatever you got to do, and go for it.
That's honestly almost the better way to do it. How many times does the season start and we're almost like a week away? It's like, he doesn't have a green card. He's not here. It's like, wait, what?
No, half the time you already have your lineup set, and then it's like the night of, and they're like, oh yeah, whoever is not starting, he doesn't have his green card yet. He doesn't have a visa, work visa. It's like, okay.
You are a major sports organization in the United States of America. Like, you got these people on speed dials for lesser things. Get these people some green cards.
We've talked about this in like Discords and stuff, and I wonder, like the MLS first of all has all these absurd rules that I don't even fully understand, their roster rules and everything. You guys probably know them really well. But things like green cards or visas, even, it's like maybe they're not allowed to request it until X date, or like why would they wait until the last minute? I just can't fathom that being like something that would make sense. So maybe there's like a rule or a imitation thing.
I think they just have to go through like the normal process that most people have to go through. Like, I don't think they get special treatment or anything, which means like sometimes it takes like 2 weeks and sometimes it takes like 3 months. And they're like, well, we tried, like we've been going through this process, but like things just aren't moving. Like that's just the US government sometimes.
Yeah, that sucks.
So yeah, it's weird and it definitely sucks. And hopefully they could like call somebody up in the government and be like, yo, we're multi-billion-dollar league. Like maybe
Tom Garber's like, yo, I'm getting
we need
out
like
here, man.
4 of these things, man. Like, just give me the stamp, I'll do it. We know we want them here. So walk us through. Let's get into St. Louis a little bit, right? Walk us through where this roster is, additions that you think need to be made, and what general kind of expectations are for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the roster, unfortunately, is probably about done. The one big speculation is they're missing DP, potentially a winger. Everybody would love to see them add a winger. They lost Stroud, who is honestly, in my opinion, addition by subtraction. I think he had 6 or 7 goals for him last year, but I don't know, blind squirrel, right? He was fine, but I think that like guys like Cilio Pompeo, who you see there as the number 8, I think he can split out wide. I don't know if they're going to run that diamond midfield or not. Picking up Durkin, they might do like a double pivot there and do a 4-2-3-1 with Lowen at the 10. But honestly, I don't think anybody really knows. They're looking at potentially selling Giacchini. Out at the wingbacks, I wouldn't say that Dyer and the new acquisitions are locks. So like Totland and Dyer, I've never seen them play. I mean, surely they're good players, but we could still see Marcanic out at left back. Are those? Is that Fripp's depth chart? Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. So like left back, I don't think Hebert will ever start out there, but it could be Dyer or Marcanic for sure. And then right back, Totland and Watts, I think could certainly be like I think both of those situations they're going to compete for their jobs. And then center back, I think kind of takes care of itself with Nielsen as long as he stays healthy. Parker, Yarrow's a good rotation piece. Chris, you probably know a little more about Durkin as far as like quality and whether he's going to be a lock in that midfield or not.
Everybody really liked him the first time he was in DC and thought he was kind of a big prospect. Mm-hmm. I think he's okay. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's like anything special. But he's just kind of an average everyday, like, I'm trying to think of like a good comparison, like a Sean Davis type guy. Like, sure, he's okay. Like he's solid.
Gonna give you your minutes.
Yeah. He's gonna give you your minutes. He scores. He does score like every now and then. He'll score like a worldy goal. But yeah, I mean, he's nothing special. Like he's not like picking out ridiculous passes. He's not out of position a lot, which is good. But like he's also not like breaking down defenses and passing through lines and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think it's okay. I think he's a decent depth piece. I don't know that like I'm broken up about him leaving DC, but I mean, it just is
right.
DC wasn't doing.
He's your replacement level MLS player, basically.
Right. So the star of DC United, but probably just okay at most other clubs, especially ones that won the Western Conference last year.
So being those wingbacks that were acquired, right? You got a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old. They're basically on 2 years with an extension, right? So you got to think that these two are the future. So for this year, maybe stay away in that battle on like left and right back. So would Tim Parker probably be the defender you go with if you were going to run like a St. Louis deck?
I mean, if I want upside, I'm going to take Nielsen for sure. Parker is going to be like your steady Eddie guy, but also like, what did he score? 5 goals last year? Like he ain't doing that again. He's probably scored more goals last year than he scored his entire career. I get it. He had guys whipping balls into him on sets and stuff, but like, come on, he ain't scoring 4 or 5 goals again. I see his L15 coming down, and I see Nielsen's potentially going up. What is it there? 50 right now.
50.
I think Nielsen was a better player than the way he finished the season. I don't know that he was fully healthy. I think that could also be the storyline for Nilsson is like, oh, he'll be good once he's healthy, or if he could just stay healthy. Like, I hope he's not that guy, but it's sort of looking like that right now.
If he does go down, what's plan B?
I mean, it would likely be like Hebert slides in there or Josh Yarrow slides in there.
Is Nerwinski a possibility?
Not at center back, no.
I mean, he played a little center back at Vancouver. It was kind of a flex there, but I don't know if he would slide over.
Yeah, I think it'd be Hebert and Yarrow would be the combo there.
Do you think either of them have would you play either of them?
Yarrow, if you look at Yarrow's scores, he scores really well. I don't know exactly what it is that he does, but he can go on little runs where he scores pretty well when he starts. But probably not worth owning for most people.
Yeah, 55 when he starts is really not bad.
When he starts, that's the issue.
When he starts, right?
Yeah, but if somebody goes down and he's a starter, it's good to know.
I think the one really interesting thing will be how they handle CONCACAF Champions Cup. Did I get that right? CCC.
Yep. We're not sure if you got that right because it changes every year.
I think that we've seen a lot of teams go into those cups, and I think Philly and Seattle are the two that we recently saw where they made deep runs. I don't know that St. Louis will even come out and run their first team. I mean, they didn't do it in Leagues Cup last year. They didn't do it in any of the Open Cup games. I don't know how seriously they'll take CONCACAF Champions Cup. But if they do take it seriously, man, expect some crazy rotation and nightmarish midweek games where you're trying to figure out who's going to play, because we've seen that with all these scenarios.
Isn't it great that they added way more MLS teams, so now everybody gets to do the midweek rotation thing, and now nobody is sure what's going to happen for the first month and a half of the MLS.
It's going to be a nightmare.
Yes.
Dude, 10 MLS teams all. It's like, what is it? I think it's the opener and then immediately Champions Cup and then the weekend and then leg 2 of it, and it's just right back to back to kick off the season.
Yeah, good luck,
buddy. Good luck with that.
DC's going to run it in the first few weeks because we don't play Champions Cup. We aren't good enough to be the 15th seed in the Eastern Conference.
That's the other funny thing when I talk about how St. Louis kind of ran good last year. We ran into a lot of spots last year where other teams were facing like fixture congestion and they were rotating against us, where like I don't think people would necessarily like pick that up and see that and be like, oh, well, St. Louis beat whoever. And it's like, well, yeah, they were rotating because they had just played 4 games in a row. Like, I think when we had Houston at home, they rotated Hector Herrera and someone else. And I know Hector Herrera rotated a lot on the road, but when I say we ran good, it's stuff like that, where I don't know that teams were always running that first team against us.
So beginner's luck. That's what you're saying.
Not beginner's luck necessarily, but like the schedule worked out well for us.
Don Garber always pulling the strings, even when you don't know it. Apparently, Charlotte's going to dominate. Shout out Orange Flag.
Have you guys had Danny Brams on yet?
No,
not yet. I haven't done Charlotte.
The thing is, we're trying to do teams that are in Champions Cup first to get ahead of it because they got a little bit more coming. Yeah, we'll do the
That's right, Bob.
We'll do the bottom feeders.
Sit there and wait for your team.
But hey, we don't know because will St. Louis be good next year? I don't know, Black. That's why we brought you here. Is St. Louis going to be good next year?
I'm not gonna say they are, and I'm not gonna say they aren't. I do worry a little bit about like a sophomore slump. Again, they had a lot of good things go their way last year, from just like own goals and back passes that found their way to Klaus's feet. Bob Flynn, who's asking about Klaus. Yeah, will we see that this year? I don't know. And like, even like looking back on the first one, it was the back pass to Jared Stroud where he swears he didn't call for the ball, but it's just like,
that was so bad. And we thought it ended there. We were like, okay, that was once. All right. Haha. Joke's on us. Oh,
like 4 in a row. It's
yeah.
wild.
Yeah. So they're my team. Obviously, I want them to be great. I want them to have a good year, but worry a little bit.
Is it Austin bad though? Like, is it
No,
like?
I don't think so. And that's also too. That's part of my personality too. Is I'm just very like tempered and like, oh, well, we'll see how things go. I'm not a trippin' B Danny Brams. It's going to be the greatest season of all time. Charlotte FC to the moon. Like, you're not going to get that from me.
Okay, that's fair. Hey, it's the hope. It's the hope that kills you.
I love Danny Brams. Different temperaments, though.
Yes, very different. So talk to me about the big stars, right? Obviously, Bob asked about Klaus. Talk to me about Loven. Like, what's their actual upside this year as far as Sorare points?
Yeah, I mean, their upside is their first 10 games that they had with St. Louis City last year. I would say is their upside. I think Lowen at the end of last season, if you watched him play, he struggled at the end of the year, and it was like after he came back from that injury that he had in the middle of the year. I don't know if he got fully fit. I don't know what it was. He looked lazy. He looked uncomfortable. He looked like he was always like upset, pissed off. Things weren't going his way. But I mean, look at those scores. Not great. So, like if you go back to the beginning of the season, that's the upside that you hope for. You don't want to see that laziness that potentially he was running around with an injury or something that we saw in that second half of the season.
Do you think it was injury? Do you think it was like lack of motivation? Like, is it something that we think is fixed? Like, what's the situation?
Hard to speculate on that, right? Let's hope that it was injury and then fitness, and not just like poor attitude.
Yeah, that'll kill your locker room. You get one guy like that, and I hate seeing it because you don't see it. Doesn't come across the screen a lot of times. But if you go to games frequently, you see the guys that constantly throwing fits, especially defenders. Like, great, now you just killed morale, and of course we're gonna lose this game because you're being an idiot. And
yeah, for sure.
It ain't good for the locker room, Chris.
Yeah, it's not good at all. So hopefully they can definitely keep that away. One thing I noticed with St. Louis last year, they collected, it seemed like, a bunch of guys, kind of like Indy Vassilev, kind of like Aziel Jackson. I guess Durkin would fit this role now of like youngish guys that have played other places, Giacchini, who like youngish guys that have a little bit of upside that like played other places and were like, okay. And then they brought them to St. Louis. Is that kind of the team mentality? Is that kind of what they're looking for at this point? Or
yeah, I mean, what did they call themselves last year? The designated team. They kept pitching that, right?
Is that really? Did they really?
Oh yeah, that was Lutz Fanistel or however you pronounce it. That's what he was pitching. Is we're not really focused on our DPS. We're the designated team. Is how he sold it.
Interesting. Do you think that worked? Can it work
first in the West, right?
Can it work long term? Like, are you going to get the same thing out of Giacchini if he doesn't leave? Are you going to get the same thing out of Indy Vassilev? Out of a Durkin obviously wasn't there last year, but
yeah, I mean, I think whatever player plays striker, whether it's Samadinaran, Giacchini, Klaus, they're going to get production there just with the directness and like the style of play. I think that there'll be plenty of opportunities for whoever's playing up top, whether it's that diamond with two strikers or 4-2-3-1, one guy. There'll be plenty of opportunities for whoever's playing forward. I think kind of the more interesting thing is for some of those like role players, like you talked about, Indy Vassilev. What's his role this year? AZ Jackson. A lot of people are speculating like AZ is going to play the 10 and he's going to start every game. They've got all these European teams looking to buy AZ, and it's just like, I don't know if AZ is ready for a role like that. I think that he's still going to be a rotational piece. They might play him at the 10. They might play him out wide a little bit. I don't know. I could see them doing a lot of different things with him.
It's so funny looking at this team, like even looking up and down the roster, and you really see it. We're like, yeah, it almost designated because they just got a bunch of like workhorse guys, like middle of the pack, and they're like, dude, go out and do it. And they did do it because do you guys have a DP spot open, or how many? You have one or two?
They do. They desperately need to sign another DP.
If you had the choice, where would you want that to go? Like, if you thinking about it like really hard, what do you want to see this team do with it?
A winger. Like everyone was talking about Joseph Paintsel from Genk. And I mean, like, yeah, he would have been a great ad. I think the Galaxy
are
the
on
team.
Him, I think.
Yeah, the Galaxy are the team that are really looking at him. But yeah, any kind of like attacky wide player would be good ad for this team.
Interesting. Very cool. So yeah, I guess talk to me a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about like the standings and the schedule and everything. Talk to me about the depth, because we have, CONCACAF Champions Cup or whatever the heck it's called this year. How is this team going to hold up when they have to rotate a little bit more and teams aren't rotating against them?
Yeah, I mean, when you have 2 DPs and you can have 3 DPs, but you choose to have 2 and you have to rotate, those DPs are going to have to rotate at some point. So playing without them is not great. You look at any of these big teams that, like are big players, big DPs in the league, playing without those players, like Houston playing without Hector Herrera, or Minnesota playing without Reynoso, although
again.
Funny enough, they were really successful early in the season without Reynoso, and then like he scored really well on the platform, but they were not successful in the second half of the season. Didn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah, they're a really weird team for sure.
Yeah,
they're about to get way weirder too.
Potentially, yeah. But yeah, playing without your DPs is typically not a good thing, and only having 2 DPs just like limits that pool. So I think that rotation will be hard. That said, having guys like AZ Jackson, who are good depth pieces, Indy Vasilev, who are good depth pieces, my biggest fear is that they rely on some of these guys to start, and they're not really considered depth pieces. These are their starters, and don't really want to see that too much.
That's kind of the heart of my question, right? If you have guys that should be depth pieces, but that end up starting, then you don't have any depth. You don't have any pieces, right? So I'm thinking of like we just talked to Deke about Philly, guys like Jack McGlynn, guys like Leon Flock, guys like Quinn Sullivan that haven't necessarily started, are now getting put into some of those roles, and they still have some depth because they have all 3 of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're coming into start now, like they lose Bedoya, they got to replace him. Now that's one less depth piece. So I'm trying to get at maybe the guys after those, those role players, if you will, that are going to start, half the games.
Yeah. So I mean, like it's striker. You have Klaus, Giacchini if he stays. You have Big Sam. So I mean, like they're fine. They're fine there. Where they don't have depth is those wide attacking players. Someone like Celio Pompeu, who I think is absolutely outstanding. I think he should play more. But right now he'd probably be considered a depth piece of sorts. I don't think they have, and I'll walk that back a little bit. Celio could start. And if Celio starts, that just shows you how thin we are at those wing positions.
Basically, so, I mean, if you don't sign the DP, then Celio starts there, and then you have no depth from there.
Right. Indy will probably play out there at some point. But like guys like Thomas Ostrak, who were supposed to be these young players they brought in last year, who just really never got going last year and just never really looked comfortable. I don't know how much they can rely on a guy like that this year. And if they do have to rely on a guy like that, it could get ugly. Just Heat saying, who's your 5th player in the stack, given Berkey, Parker, Lowen, Klaus, or locks?
Oh, that's spicy.
Yeah. We talked about Parker not being the lock, but we talked about Nielsen being
the
one you prefer.
He's the one I prefer. But Parker is a lock to start for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends on matchups. And I think that like St. Louis is going to be the team that you kind of want to rock matchups with. Like if you think that lineup's going to get a clean sheet, maybe you run 2 defenders, and it could be one of those wingbacks that they just picked up. If they start the season hot, they look good. Maybe you're playing one of those guys. Although I think only one of those guys even has cards. Dyer, I think, has some cards from Midgetland. But Totland does not.
Interesting. Give me the one guy who breaks out from this team that gets above, depth piece, locks in a spot as a starter, maybe a young guy, wherever you want to go, but who's the one guy that you're looking outside of those guys?
Yeah. I mentioned him earlier, Cilio Pompeu. I love watching him play. He's quick. He can dribble. I don't know that he'll get a ton of playing time. We'll see. I think that if he gets some starts, like if you go look at Cilio and just look at his AA in games.
Yeah. So as a starter, he's a 44.5 with a 9.5 AA.
Yeah.
Can he score is the question. He had a lot of.
Can he score? I mean, he doesn't. What did he have? 1 goal last year?
He had 2. He scored in the last game.
Oh, look at him go.
Yeah, and I mean, most of those are just like sub appearances. I think, right? Is that? Yeah,
20 subs and 9 starts.
Yeah. Hard to get rhythm. I'm actually surprised he started 9 games. But I really like the way he plays. I think that he could be a really good, Sorare card at some point.
Yeah, if you can get 10 AA out of a guy and then you throw a goal on top of that, that's a 7. Right. That's what you're kind of looking for. So
now, are his cards forwards or midfield cards?
I think they're midfield. If I saw,
are they midfielder cards? Yeah, that's not as ideal. If you could, if they minted him as a forward, those would be a lot better, I guess.
Do you think he'll get one next year? Because how does Sorare, do they base it off like their position from the year before? Is that kind of, or they just kind of go by Opta? What is?
They go by Opta, but then they also have to have each club like proof the cards. And if the club doesn't like the position on a player, they'll make them switch it. So the big one last year, Saka from Arsenal, he was originally going to be minted as a forward. And Arsenal was like, no. He's a midfielder.
Wow.
And they had to go back. They had to go back and change all of his cards to midfielders.
I wonder if it has something to do with the valuation in the transfer market. Where they're just like, oh, we'd rather have him in this position because it'd be easier to sell him as a winger than a forward and
yeah, it's probably more like and probably most clubs just like rubber stamp it. They don't give a shit, right? But Arsenal, they might just be like, no. We have him listed on our website as a midfielder. We want his card to be a midfielder.
Completely ruining the game for everybody, just like Arsenal does. Yeah.
Don't you understand?
That's when Sorare needs to be like. So that's when Sorare needs to be like, hey, his cards will be worth 30% more if we mint them as forwards, and you'll make more money. Right. Although Arsenal probably doesn't really care about the revenues that Sorare generates.
Are you kidding? Do you know how much we're selling? Cards are flying off the market. Rich. Before we almost get out of here, before we get into like what you think the St. Louis team will do next year and where they will end in the standings and the ups and downs, where do you want St. Louis to go for these like other tournaments? Would you like them to go for, or do you want them to do like last year, just be like, forget these tournaments, just focus on the season again?
Man, that's an awesome question. That is an absolutely awesome question. Yes, I want them to go for every competition. I want them to build out their roster. I want them to have 3 DPs. You know what? Go get 4 DPs like Inter Miami did the other a couple years ago or whatever. Get that extra DP and get fined for it. I don't care. I want them to sign as many players and bring as many players in as they can. Have the most depth that they can possibly have. Bend to those MLS rules. Come on.
They're more like suggestions. They're not rules.
Rules were meant to be broken. So
exactly.
I'll never understand any of them, and they won't make sense to me. So. But yeah, I want them to go for as many of these as they can within reason. I get it. Like the real question is like when they go into the season and the roster that they have right now is their roster. How many of these competitions do I want them to go for? I want them to do the European model where it's like, we're going to limp into the first couple games with rotation. We're going to see how we do. And if we win our first 2 games and we get to the next round, then we play our starters and we go for trying to win it or whatever. But yeah, it's going to be tough to run your starters in league games and in these early stages of these cups.
So going along with that, right? They're in Champions Cup. Obviously, they have Leagues Cup, maybe US Open Cup. Who knows? As of right now, not, I guess.
Yikes.
Where do they finish this season? I want a number in the standings. Where do they finish?
What is 8th and 9th place? They play that play-in game.
Yeah.
I'm calling it right now. It's going to be St. Louis and Kansas City for the play-in game at 8 and 9. Yeah.
Wow. Klaus versus
that.
Alan Polito. Yeah, it's the match of
Little
dreams.
rematch from last year, right?
Oh, yikes. Man, how do you feel about
Are they
that?
going to win it, though, if they get to that spot? Do they get their revenge, or is it like, no, Kansas City's just our dads now?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, like, I think St. Louis, a lot of the St. Louis City supporters and fans kind of like got what they were asking for in that game. Everyone was begging for Kansas City and really wanting Kansas City in that game. And it's like, shit, you want to play your first playoff game against your quote unquote biggest rival? Like, that just sounds horrible to me. Like, bring San Jose on, please.
Yeah.
But the fans were begging for KC. Oh, we beat them twice already this year, and we get them at home, 2 games at home. All right, you only got to play 1 game at home.
Rookie mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, dude, that has to be fun though. That little rivalry, like Kansas City used to be like top of my list and like stadiums I want to visit, but they got bumped down a little bit by St. Louis. So I won't
nice.
out there.
Yeah, you'll have to come out. It'll be a good time.
Well, it'd be nice if all East teams played all West teams every year, and it was even. But no,
right.
We have
too many teams for that, Jorge. We've grown too big.
Whatever, not big enough apparently, because we didn't increase the rosters. Okay, not big enough. We need more because poor Black wants to win all the trophies.
That's right,
and they're just not taking them seriously. But dude, this is incredible. We're at 30 minutes. It only took 2 tries, but we got here. Black, thanks so much for coming on. This is incredible news. St. Louis again. Hopefully they'll be able to be good again, but not so much Austin, but a little regression. Is there anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to let these people know?
No, I love all your guys' content. Can't talk. Content. Keep up the good work. I think this is going to be super helpful. Not this particular show, but like when you bring Deke on, when you bring other people on, it's going to be super helpful for people building their Sorare galleries out for MLS. So, yeah, keep up the good work, guys.
Appreciate that. And we appreciate everybody that was here live, everybody that listened to it afterwards. Again, there's a lot of teams, a lot of people. Let us know who you want to hear from. We'll get it out there. MLS is almost back. Too many competitions. Champions Cup. St. Louis.